Hello everyone, this is Tom in Los Angeles. I hope everyone is doing well. We're having a good week, whatever week we're talking about, whenever you're watching this. I'm doing a tag video today. It's the last 10 books tag, and I have to apologize because I'm coming a little bit late. I've already been tagged by the lovely Rose, a Scully Dandling, always interesting in every single one of our videos, and the same for the same tag. I've also been tagged by Alan at Big Hard Books and Classics. Always fun to listen to Alan, and also by Steve Donahue, the one and only. So I'm going to jump into this one. The original was created by Marc Nash, and it sounds like a really fun tag video, so I'm gonna try and go quick through it. What's the last book you didn't finish? The last book I didn't finish, it wasn't it was kind of a long time ago because I generally finish my books, but it's this one. It's called Unwind, and it's a YA book. I was really attracted by the concept, which is this. The Second Civil War was a long and bloody conflict fought over a single issue. To end the war, a set of constitutional amendments known as the Bill of Life was passed. It satisfied both the pro-life and the pro-choice armies. The Bill of Life states that human life may not be touched from the moment of conception until a child reaches the age of 13. However, between the ages of 13 and 18, a parent may choose to retroactively abort a child on the condition that the child's life doesn't technically end. The process by which a child is both terminated and yet kept alive is called unwinding, or technically using their body parts for other people, and therefore unwinding without technically ending somebody's life. Pretty gruesome and dark as a concept, but also interesting. I was attracted by this concept of American Civil War fought around the abortion, the pro-life and pro-choice argument, which I know it's so incredibly intense in not only in this country but in Europe as well. And but the book is I am trying to be as respectful as I can, especially with a YA book, because I'm not a fan of YA literature at all. I find it, this is what I think of this book and the other few young adult books that I've read. It's, instead of enjoying a nice French wine or Italian wine, you take a little sip of this wine and you dilute it with a gallon of water, and then you enjoy it. It's to me, it's exactly the same thing. So I ask why. I wonder why. Obviously, there is a market. There are very clear business reasons to do this, but still, why? I probably went through 2/3 of the book and then couldn't push, because that's all there is. The concept that I explained is all there is. All the rest is empty dialogue among children and teenagers, and there's no development, no real plot, nothing. So that was negative. The second one is the last book you reread. The last book I reread was a Theodore Sturgeon book, and that's interesting because I know that Noah, at Everyone Who Reads and Must Converse, has been talking about Sturgeon a lot recently, and he put up a beautiful video about More Than Human recently. That's one of Sturgeon's novels. This is a bit of a vintage version, hardcover, of Godbody, which is one of Theodore Sturgeon's novels. I found it in a used bookstore in Los Angeles. And the novel is fantastic, and I think it was during one of Noah's lives that probably Marc Richardson mentioned Godbody, and when he mentioned it, I said to myself, I have to reread that one. And it was a really good idea to reread it because it's such a genius type of novel. It's kind of about the second coming of Christ, but with many twists and very, very original. So I really recommend it. And I recommend everything that Sturgeon ever wrote, more or less. The third prompt is the last book you bought. The last book I bought is something that makes me a little excited because I just received it yesterday, and it's Dante's Inferno. However, with a twist. It's a version of Dante's Inferno illustrated by Sandow Birk, and the text is adapted by Sandow Birk and Marcus Sanders. And it's faithful to the original Inferno, to Dante's Inferno. However, the text is freely adapted to a more modern, even with some language, with even some slang type of colloquialisms and swear words, which in some cases of the Inferno, I think they fit really well. And from a graphic standpoint, Sandow Birk took the famous Gustave Doré engravings and illustrations and reinterpreted them with, I'm going to show them probably as pictures, that's better, but reinterpreted them within the modern Los Angeles reality. The book is from 2004, so okay, it's from 15 years ago, but living Los Angeles, this certainly resonates. The illustrations are very strong. Look at this one, for example, Dante and Virgil next to the Hollywood sign. It's a very original project, very, very original, that I still have to dive into, but it's going to be so much fun to see the ideas they came up with. So Dante's Inferno by Sandow Birk and Marcus Sanders. In fact, this came together with another purchase that I have to thank Rose for, which is Our Lady of the Nile, another book by Scholastic Mukasonga that I discovered this author recently. She's from Rwanda and she writes very lyrically, very beautifully. Next one, number 4. The last book you said you read but didn't. There is none really in terms of purposely lying about the books that I read, but like somebody else did with this tag, I want to say that there is by mistake, I thought I had read a book, but I didn't. Because I felt like all my life I had read it almost by osmosis, by speaking with people and reading about it, and that's The Lord of the Flies. Lord of the Flies, I know it's a great book, I know it's a classic, and I know everything about the plot, so I don't know why I came to believe that I had already read it, but I realized recently that I never did, so I'll have to correct that. The number 5, the last book you wrote in the margins of. Writing in the margins is something I do generally only with non-fiction. I never write in margins with fiction books, but with non-fiction I tend to do it, sometimes highlighting, sometimes writing in margins. So the last one that I did is this book, which might not sound extremely exciting to most. It's called Simone Weil, or Weil, an introduction by Heinz Abosch. Simone Weil is a French philosopher. She lived between the 1910 and 1945 or 46. She died young. And she's a very, very interesting thinker, somebody who had a very strong, independent opinions. She was listened to during her life by prominent authors, prominent philosophers, and she was troubled. She had a really troubled health and troubled, I think, life overall. Although the author of this book, Heinz Abosch, is obviously quoting a lot of her work and talking about the evolution of her thinking, from a mainly socially conscious, worker-focused and unions-focused thought towards later in her life more Christian type of thought, but never. It's impossible to categorize Simone Weil. She was her own thinker and almost a quintessential rebel against any type of authority or even philosophical category or theological category. So I loved it, and it's very interesting as an introduction to this great thinker, this great philosopher. Number 6, what's the last book you had signed? I'm really not very big about signatures on books, and I think I had the luck to be in a bookstore in Los Angeles some years ago when Michael Connelly, the thriller author, was there signing books. However, I didn't queue up for the signature, I have to admit, even though I really love his books. I read some of them. Number 7, the last book you lost. The last book I lost. I don't think there is a book I lost. I cannot think of any for this prompt, sorry. Number 8, the last book you had to replace. The last book I had to replace. The last book I had to replace, as many of you probably know, with all its defects, Amazon has a great merit, which is they are great in terms of replacing books that are not, they're damaged. It just, at least that's my experience. I just send them an email and they send me another copy. So I had ordered this little booklet. It's called The Practice of the Presence of God and the Spiritual Maxims by Brother Lawrence. It's a Christian classic from the 17th century. It completely fell apart, and I just destroyed it by touching it the first day. So Amazon sent me a second copy, and in this sense I had to replace it. It's whether you're Christian or not, whether you're religious or not, the interest of this book is in the fact that it fits in the spiritual and almost in the mystical tradition of Christianity, because this Brother Lawrence was almost a nobody, somebody who was a Carmelite, lay Carmelite in Paris, in France, and entered their monastery in 1665. And he was their cook. He was cooking their meals, breakfast, lunch, evening. But his approach to Catholicism and to Christianity was so unique and peculiar, in the sense of a constant attitude of not only constant prayer. Whenever everybody had finished their formalized prayers, he would continue praying in his mind. And this is why it's called the practice of the presence of God in constantly, daily. As almost unrealistic this type of approach to prayer is, how possible can it be to have God constantly in your mind while you're going on about your daily activity every single hour of your day? As impossible and unrealistic as it sounds, I don't believe it's far from what this person actually experienced, based on the letters and the writings of this book. In a certain sense, it goes out beyond what Christianity is and has been, and it sounds like Brother Lawrence, if this is all true, might have reached something thanks to a combination of genetics, his personality, whatever, a big equation. He might have reached something that even Tibetan monks sometimes are not able to achieve in terms of a constant state of meditation. So certainly not only for Christians or not only for people who care about Christianity. a very powerful and very short book. It's only 80 pages. Next prompt. Next prompt is number 9, the last book you had an argument over. Doesn't happen that often, but just for the sake of the prompt, I'm going to quote an argument, a friendly argument I had with my best friend, who is a non-believer. He's an atheist, and we probably had an argument about the Bible. So, like it always happens, but they are not as much arguments about the topics. Does God exist? Does God not exist? Because I believe that among smart people, it's absolutely impossible to win or to lose one of these type of arguments. The point is having a smart argument versus a stupid argument. And here I should probably quote Mr. Steve Donoghue, who in one of his videos, he really hit me. He said, stupidity is antithetical to faith. I completely believe that. In my mind as well, I make a complete distinction between what are stupid arguments pro or against God's existence and clever arguments pro or against God's existence, which both have their merits. But that's, in my mind, the real distinction. And so, as long as there is respect and intelligence, any argument is legitimate and sometimes even interesting. That's obviously beyond that, it becomes very personal, very subjective. It's about your own personal history. And finally, number 10, the last book you couldn't get a hold of. Difficult to say because we have this immense privilege today of just being able to get any book we want, really. But because I'm spoiled as well, I'm like others, I guess, I really wanted to get my hands on a copy of Brave New World. Brave New World by the Folio Society. They have sold out on their websites, and I think I've struggled to find it. So it's one of those childish desires I absolutely don't need, but if I have to answer the question, I will say that Folio Society Brave New World. Again, as I said at the beginning, I'm a little late with this tag, so I believe most people in this corner of BookTube have already done it. So if you see my video and you would like to do the tag, please consider yourself tagged. I'm going to use this cop-out strategy. And thank you for watching my video. I hope you enjoyed some of it.